Howdy, everyone. Welcome. And glad to be back with you all here. Had a week off last week. We're Terry here and our friend Zach were together and chatting away. I wish I could have been with you guys, but
Yeah, we
for
missed
those
you.
that, yeah, thanks. For those that don't remember me after a week off, my name's Doug Kofi. I'm the founder and principal consultant for People Smart Group and also the founder for the Organizational Health Collective. And I'm here with my good friend Terry.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Terry Wager, Generator Consulting, Principal Consultant, along with my partner, Christine. And I am a member of the Organizational Health Collective, and they do some amazing stuff with helping other consultants really feel like they have uh, a community. And we're really devoted to trying to help everybody step up their game. And I think it's a great group of people. And if you're struggling as a consultant or you're doing really well and you want to give back, you should jump in because we're helping each other succeed.
Absolutely. Great word there, Terry. Thanks. And yeah, so we'd love to have you join us if that's something you could use community around you. You could use help. You could use growing in your expertise. Those are all things we focus on. And
And if you want to share your expertise, we we
absolutely,
all we all learn from each other.
absolutely. So yeah, so it's a fantastic group, and we're a part of that. We also get to do this here podcast and talk to people about the whole reality of consulting, especially in the arena of organizational health. And we have both been working at that for a bit here and love what we're doing and love passing along as much as we can. So, what are we diving in on today, Terry? I think,
I think we're talking about something around values and
yeah,
are they valuable?
hmm,
Are values
yeah.
valuable?
Why do these companies got a plaque on the wall with values? What is that all about?
What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, come
So
on.
it,
Everyone's got them, right? Everyone has them on their website. Everyone has them. You look at job descriptions these days. Oh, this is who we are. These are our values. Do they really mean anything? Are they really worthwhile? I mean, what do you think? Is that?
You know, I think values are valuable, in fact.
Mm,
However, I don't think everybody lives their values, and I don't think that
mm,
people all the time understand the depth of what they are doing with the values.
that's good. That's good. I like the way you put that. So they don't understand. They don't get it. They're using values in ways that maybe you don't think fit. So what's that look like? What are some of the ways people use values that aren't very helpful?
Well, my experience is they talk a good game, but
Mm,
then when you actually look at what they're doing, you don't see it show up. And so
mm,
we believe in transparency, but you have no idea what anybody's thinking.
mm.
You have no idea what's going on in the
Yeah.
company. Nobody
Yep.
really talks to each other, but they're transparent. Um, or
Yeah.
they believe in growth, but then they don't actually spend money for their people to learn anything, or they don't get consulting, they don't get coaching, they don't go to seminars and improve their abilities.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that I think about. And so, um,
Wow.
uh, the idea of having values is really, for me, behaviors.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think about. And I think that a lot of business has realized that values are important to say you have.
Yeah.
But, and honestly, I'm in recovery, and one of my mentors in recovery years ago said, sometimes I want to be thought of as a certain way so I can carry on in this other way that isn't so good.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
think that's how people use values sometimes is I want to present myself by saying I'm this so I can carry on this other way,
Wow.
but I've said I'm this. And that's the problem I think a lot of people have is they don't really look at how their behavior is affecting other people.
Mm,
They don't look at how they're interacting with other people, but the same idea with boundaries is like I have these boundaries and it's a line in the sand and you better not cross them or I'll get mad.
yeah. So they're kind of a PR tool in that sense, right?
It
It's like,
turns
hey,
into a
I'm going to
PR tool. Yeah.
put forward, hey, this is who we are. Aren't we the greatest people on the planet? Kind
Yeah.
of that, the the ultimate story of that one being Enron here in Houston, where I am from. And yeah, their top value is integrity, right? And everyone believes that now. But it was on the wall. That's who they are, right? It was on the website.
Right.
That's who they are. They have integrity. Yeah, except they don't, especially from the top.
Right. And it's the other, you said PR. Sometimes it's a marketing message, and you know what? It sounds good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
how does it show up?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I learned a long time ago is people talk a lot about the different things that they're saying and doing, but their behavior betrays them.
Yeah. Well said.
And we got to look at the behavior, and we got to pay attention. This is another thing I learned in recovery years and years and years ago is your daily walk and your daily talk need to match up. Otherwise you're incongruent.
Yep. Yeah.
And if you're incongruent,
yep.
What's happening a lot of times, and I don't think anybody's wrong if they're not lining up with what you're saying and what you're doing. I think that there's a blind spot there, and it's not about being malicious or anything, but I think people have a lot of blind spots, and they really do care about the things they put on the wall, but they just aren't paying attention to themselves enough because either the bias, the adrenaline bias, or the simplification bias, or those different things that get in the way, or fatal attribution error. We get in the way and start paying attention to our what we're trying to do, and getting rid of blame for why things aren't working out, and stop paying attention to how we want to be.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that. So sometimes it's just unintended. Hey, this is who we're focused on being, but we sort of slid away from these values because, well, they didn't really get us where we were going, or we just weren't paying attention. We weren't keeping track of things. But other times it seems like, not in an intentional way, but values sound good. Well, that sounds like a really good one, right? We should care about our people. Whether we do or not might be a different story. We might work them to the bone, but we should say we care about the people that we hire, right? Because that'll help with hiring. If we say that we care about our people.
It's an internal hiring marketing message is like, we really care about you. Yep. And then, people are leaving in droves.
Right. Right. Yeah. Or we just laid off 10,000 people, hey, so, we care about them though. We don't mind if they're, out on the line looking for a new job, but.
Yeah. And so I think that there's this idea of, people understand that it's necessary, and they don't necessarily understand how to use values or come up with what is our values. And so really understanding why they're important, what they do in your company is super important too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for us, we constantly talk about the reality that values should be at the core of who you are as a company. They should really be defining your culture as a whole, as a company, and should be starting from the very top. That your executive team ought not just to have values they state. They ought to be able to state them anyway. They ought to remember them well enough that, if I ask you, what are your values, they should be able to say them. And not just say them, but they should be living them. And if they're not lived by the executive team, then why are they going to be lived by anyone else in the company, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a top-down thing, and it's a modeling thing. And one of the whenever I'm talking to my clients, one of the things that I really try to drive home to them is the number one job they have is modeling the behavior they're looking for in their business. Yep. That's their number one job, is to model the behavior they're looking for in their business. Then if they're, a strategist, then do strategy. If they're, a finance guy, then take care of the finances. But first, model the behaviors you're looking for.
Yeah, I love that. Yep. And with that, then underlying that is that our values that we state can't be things we hope to become or hope to be. They've got to be who we are.
Right. Otherwise, and that's at the core. And we in organizational health, and we learned this through working with the models of Pat Lencioni, but the idea of having core values is one thing, but you got to have things that you're actually growing to. And what Doug was referring to is what we call aspirational values. And
Yeah.
so we don't have these values locked in, but we want to grow more towards this. And those are aspirational values, and we want to be aspiring to these. Um, and
And as a company, you want to aspire to something, right? But that
Absolutely.
can't be core to who you are. You've got to know who you are, and you got to know how you behave. And so oftentimes people put those values as the things, and then they'll list, 20 values. This is our values. And, of those 15, we don't really live out, but those 15, we really want to be that. We're hoping to become that. We're hoping to grow into that. We're hoping we'll be able to live that out in the future. And it's like, well, that's not who you are today. And so how can you say this is the core of who we are? You can't. It's not core to you. It's a hope. It's a dream. It may even be something you're striving toward, but that's not who you are today.
Right. And we really look at, okay, who do you want to become, and what is the most important to work towards or strive towards and for me, I keep it in behaviors. I really lock it in the behaviors because I value honesty. Everybody does. Everybody, especially if you're being lied to, then you really, really value honesty right after you realize that you were lied to and you're betrayed because of it.
Right.
Honesty, all of a sudden,
especially when you know it the most, right? Yeah.
I need this right now from you. But or integrity is another one you said, and it's funny because I think integrity is it doesn't, for me, it's not a value. It's either you're together and whole or you're disintegrated.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. And so it's honestly more a measuring stick than a value. Is there integrity there? Right. We can see if a ship in the middle of the Gulf of New Mexico has integrity or not, because it's sunk if it doesn't. There's a big hole. It's been compromised. There's no integrity, and so it sinks.
Yep. Yeah.
So we can really look at it and, okay, are they doing what they're saying? Then they have integrity. It's not a value that we actually are trying to live by. It's a measuring stick that we see. Yes, they do. Yes, they're living by what they say they're living by because they have integrity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
And so I think it's really interesting when people are like, my value is integrity. No, it's not. That's a measuring stick. You can't actually use that as a value. It's a measuring stick.
Yeah. 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 Are you integrated, right? Are you full? Do you live the same wherever you are at all times?
Yeah. And I got news for us. Most of us don't.
Yeah.
Most of us aren't 100% with integrity.
Yep.
It might be something we aspire to, but it's still something we're measuring. And the idea of excellence, right? That's one of our aspirational values in Generator is excellence. I'm not excellent at everything all of the time, but the integrity with which I'm excellent is to admit when I'm wrong or admit when I haven't been excellent and admit that I didn't hit the mark. And here's how I'm going to work on that. And then that's proving I have integrity. And so I don't know why I jumped down integrity.
That whole road. Yeah. Yep. That's all right. Hey, that's the beauty of being live, right? We just go and we end up where we end up.
Sorry, integrity.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important for people to understand that we could put a whole bunch of words that are abstract in meaning up as values.
Yep.
But it's really the behavioral operation of those and how we show up. Because let's say vulnerability is one of my core values in our business. And so how does that show up? Well, admitting when I'm wrong. Right. Being able to talk about what's scaring me, being able to talk about what's uncomfortable, being able to step in and be open and be that naked consultant. not just with Christine, but with my clients, with my partners and friends, and be vulnerable and be open to hearing feedback that I don't like. Um,
Yeah.
and
Good. It's good.
That's the behavioral operation. And so I really focus on what that looks like, because vulnerable to somebody else might be, well, I admit when you bother me.
Right. Right. Which is a great point. When we come up with values, sometimes we just throw words out that seem full of meaning, but we've got to fill out that meaning. What does that mean? What does that mean for us to live that out? What does it look like in our context for us to live out X? Be it vulnerability, be it service, be it whatever you want to pick as that value. To some degree, you've got to actually define it well enough that your people can say, "Hey, this is what that means. This is how I would actually represent that value in this company, in this organization." And I think that's a key piece, because there's so many companies that we pick words, and words have meaning, but they're given meaning. They're not standard. They're not straight across. Usually there's a baseline, but within that we've got a range. And
Right.
you may
Right.
mean something that I don't mean when you say a certain word.
It's funny. I'm going to bring up a word that lights a fire in everybody in some way, and that's the word God. Right? I
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
You have your own opinion of what that means.
Yeah.
And it's like I heard a guy speak one time, and he said, "When I say God, you take all of whatever your baggage is from before,
Mm-hmm.
and all of your misgivings, all of your trauma, all of your scared, all of your joy that goes with that, and you put
Yeah.
that towards what that means."
Yeah.
And so I say one 3-letter word,
Yep.
and you put all of your past years up till I said the word
Yep.
of your experience into that word, and
Yeah.
you're operating from your experience, not my word.
Yep. Yeah. So as a leader, if we're going to use words for our values that are just base words, we've got to make sure we're laying out what does that mean? What do I mean by I want my people to live out, be servant hearted, or I want my people to live out kindness, or any of those sorts of things that, hey, that might be loaded with a whole set of meaning to you, but what does that really mean? And
Right.
I think the other piece that you brought up, and I'll circle back to, even though you kind of went there and you're like, why did I go here? Is integrity. But one of the key pieces of integrity as an organization is, do we have integrity in terms of our values? Do our values built down and integrated throughout our entire organization? Do they affect us at the top? Do they affect us at the ground level? Do they affect us in our hiring? Do they affect us in our performance reviews? Do they affect us? How do we live those out? How do we make that a core piece of who we are? If those are our core values, they should be core to every last thing that we do. And so that integrity as a company is vital for us to actually establish a culture and a health that says, this is really who we are. Otherwise, no, you're not.
Yeah. Well said. And I think that it really does tie into the idea of, we talk about vision and mission as well as like what we do and why we do it. And I really think that the behavioral values, the behavioral actions that we do, identifying our values,
Yep.
all have to tie back into the vision of why we do it, and also what we do, in other words, to create that, or in so that we create that integrity. If
Yep.
we don't have it connected to what we do and why we do it, they don't matter.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Yep.
And so we have to have our values really connected to our vision and our mission. Otherwise, they're valuable. And if we look at any value-based word, it is valuable on its own.
Mm-hmm.
But the value-based words outside of the vision and the mission lose power.
Right. So if I'm an AI company that deals with data, and I say I'm into community service, that's really probably not going to help me much. Is that what you're saying?
It could. How is it going to help in the community service? Because what's the greater reason you're doing it? And then what are you actually doing?
Right. And how do you actually use that for community service? Is that really true to you, who your company is? Or is that just, hey, you know what? It sounds good. We should all be about community service. So therefore everyone will like me if I say I'm about community service, even if I'm building AI to be something no one wants it to be.
Back when I was a kid, when I was about community service, because I got in trouble.
Right? There you go. Oh man. Yeah. And it's so, it's even catchy these days to think through some of those ways we apply values. So it's catchy to say, hey, I've got my values on this job description. And yet, so often, what are we looking for? We're looking at the skills first. Does this person match up in skills? Oh, we'll hire them. Well, what happens if I hire the person that really does not match my culture? They're the best skilled, most skilled person for the job, but they're the exact opposite of my values.
Right.
That's going to bring destruction in my organization. They're not going to be doing a great job for us. They may be able to do the technical details of what I ask them to do, but when it comes down to how they carry out the mission, the vision, the values of the organization, forget it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that it's just super fun for me when I see a company actually get this idea that the values are that connective tissue between vision and mission, and they start using those values to be very present in what they're doing, and use it in their hiring, and use it in their correspondence with everybody, and use it in
Yep.
their language of their office. And when they're doing that, you can see that enthusiasm grows.
Yeah. Yep. I got a neat example recently. I'm two different fast food places I went and visited recently. Chick-fil-A, everyone likes to talk about, and McDonald's, not too long ago. And you go to Chick-fil-A, and of course, Kathy, what was one of his favorite things? That's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And now you hear it all the time, and you hear the story. He never pushed anyone to use that terminology. He just lived it. And yes, it's a key piece of who they are as a customer service based company, and you see it. But if someone says it's my pleasure, I can tell the difference between someone whose face who goes, whatever, yeah, whatever, my pleasure. Or, hey, you know what? It really is my pleasure. And I love it. I go through Chick-fil-A, I go through the drive-through, or I go inside. It doesn't really matter. When I interact with the people, I can just see a joy in serving other people. I can see a joy that comes out. So when they say it's my pleasure, I totally am like, yeah, this is your pleasure. I believe that. And then I go through the drive-through line at McDonald's, and the lady looks like she could care less about being there. She could care less that I'm there. And she really wishes I wasn't, actually, it seems like. That's how I feel. And then I say, thank you very much. And she says, oh, it's my pleasure. I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say the same thing. It's not going to do the same thing. Your values are lived. And if it's truly you want to serve people and you want to care for people, and you're making their lunch matters, well, it's going to come across.
Absolutely. And I'm in that quick serve world quite a bit, with working with some of my clients and other stuff. And I have seen firsthand that people can say things like "Have a nice day" or "Good to see you," "Welcome in," and you can tell when people don't give a crap, and you can tell when people really own it.
Yep.
And when they're like really excited about the customer experience. And I actually went into a store. I'm not going to mention which one it is, but in Tualatin, the city I live in, Tualatin, Oregon. And the guy said good morning, like I was bothering him, and I was like, wow, okay, so wow.
Not sure you meant that.
Is it good morning, or is it I'm in your way?
It's get the hell out.
Yeah, and that's how it felt. It's like, okay. Funny enough, I was actually shopping the store. And so I was going in there to actually see how they're doing. I was like, ooh, that's a bad mark.
Yeah.
But and I am very quick to tell the people that I'm working with, when they're talking to their employees and they're talking to their partners that are working in that business, treat every person as if they are the most important person in that experience, And it's because that's kind of a value I have, is that present, vulnerable, being there for people. If you show up that way, you're going to have 100% more success with whatever interaction you have. I mean,
Yep.
if they're upset with you, they're going to treat you differently than if they're upset with a situation. If you're there for them and you're treating them like they mean something, and you're there.
Yeah.
I keep saying there, but you know what I mean? It's that present, connected piece. The person's going to respond totally different than if you blow them off.
Totally. Yeah. Yep. It's those people skills, right? I mean, and again, is it lived? Is it real to me? Is it coming from the heart, or is it just something I learned to say?
Right. And
Like
it's
that good morning. That good morning was rehearsed, and they knew to say good
morning.
morning. Yeah.
Now, um, uh, and yeah, it's totally the idea of the values that a business has. They come from the person that's running it, or the team that's running it. And when they are not living their values,
Yeah.
Accidental values show up, which are those things that you don't want in your business.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, that example that I said, where I felt like the guy is saying out, he values solitary living
Mm-hmm.
in the business. He doesn't value money, for sure. He doesn't value customer service. At least
Right.
this is my impression.
Yep.
He doesn't value his job,
Right.
because he wasn't the owner.
Yep.
So he doesn't value the owner, and these are accidental values that are showing up. It's like, okay, he's not, there's a lot of problems there. And
Yeah.
so the interpretation automatically, which maybe we're not supposed to interpret, but you can't help when you don't feel welcome, that you're not welcome. And
Yep.
the value that I got is, we don't really welcome our guests.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, honestly, if I'm the owner of the business, I don't really. I want to know what that person interprets. I'm not going to sit here and judge their interpretation. I want to know that they don't feel like crap walking in and out of my store. Because
Absolutely.
if they feel like crap, they don't come back and they don't buy stuff, right? And if they don't, they come back, right?
Yeah.
And so the bottom line is, who really cares how offended you are by how they responded? At the end of the day, you are responsible for, hey, how am I coming across to them?
Yeah.
And that's what you communicate. And
Yeah.
the other piece I would say is leaders and owners. The bottom line is too, you can't just say, okay, we figured out who we are. We plastered our values on the wall. We're good to go. You've got to cultivate the values. And that's the other thing I see failing again and again and again and again. It's organizations that, oh yeah, we got values. We're good. Now we move on to the important stuff. And it's like, no, if you do not cultivate those values, you will not ever live them. They have to be spoken of. They have to be revisited. They have to be talked about. They have to, we've got to point out the people who are doing wonderful at it. You want customer service to be important in a quick serve store. Guess what? You better be pointing out the person who does it amazing again and again
Absolutely.
and again, because that's the person you want to give oxygen to, and you want everyone else to go, man, I want to be more like them. They're always saying good things about them. I want to be said good things about.
There it is. Hell yeah. That's 100% true. We want to be really reinforcing that, because honestly, what's reinforced stays.
Yep.
What's missed goes away. And unfortunately, we reinforce bad habits and poor values.
Yeah.
And we because we don't sell, and unfortunately, we're reinforcing the bad behavior by reminding people of bad behavior, instead of reminding people of the value and why. Why are we valuing this? And there's that old statement that or adage, I don't know exactly how it goes, but it's something like, people aren't going to do what you ask them to, and until they understand why you want them to do it. And I mean, there's a saying, I don't know what the saying is, I can't remember the cliche, but people tend to negate those things we ask them to do, unless they understand why and how important it is. And funny enough, we're so busy with that adrenaline bias, trying to get stuff done, that we go, okay, we got our values done. Now we're done. And no, you got to live those. And
Yeah.
I think it was one of the hallmark or pins to put in this statement that we're talking about today is, if you're trying to make money, really living your values and being of service and making sure that you spend a lot of time with the values and getting everybody on board with that and coaching around that is the best way to increase your financial outlook.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's the thing. Most people are like, well, what's the ROI on values? But the ROI is, hey, if customer service is key to actually people being a part of my company, then those values matter huge, because people are not going to come back. Again, do I want to go back to McDonald's? Not really. I don't want to see that lady again.
Right.
I want to go back to the Chick-fil-A. Absolutely. They're thrilled to see me. And I can tell. And so why am I going to go, if I have to pick and I'm kind of toss up between the two, I'm going to Chick-fil-A. I'm not going to that McDonald's because that lady's grumpy. And I don't want to see her again.
Absolutely. And nobody likes Seinfeld. They love the soup character, but nobody really wants to be served by him.
Hey, no soup for you. Right.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Or if you do, it's because it's a gimmick and you're like, hey, this is kind of fun. He's kind of grumpy and that's his thing. And okay, it's kind of fun. But when the guy really mistreats you, no, you're not going back.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
well, and leaders, I would just challenge leaders today, right? I mean, in all honesty, this will impact your bottom line. This changes things for your company because, again, as you've said, obviously we have to tie it to why. We have to tie it to purpose. We have to tie it to why are we doing what we're doing? What are we doing? And our values flow right alongside of that. And if those values really match up and are really important, then we better be harping on them. We better be drilling them down. We better be observing them. We better be pushing for them. We better be hiring for them. We better be supporting them in terms of our people. And if we're not, then we're going to get less productivity. And bottom line, we're going to get less on the bottom line.
You know, one of the things that I think about is we often catch people doing things wrong. Mm-hmm. But one of the strongest things I think we can do to really help people start living their values is catch people doing the values right.
Yep.
Catch them. Oh, you did it right. And reward it. And then, reward it by celebrating it, not necessarily give them $1 every time they do it. But in the beginning, you could do something like that. But then bring attention to it when they're forgetting it, but celebrate it when they're doing it and call it out in front of everybody. Hey, this person's really we can see they're living that value.
Yeah.
And when we do that and we catch people living it right, we're going to see more of it.
I like that. Well said, Terry. Yeah, that sense of give oxygen to the goodness of what someone's doing and when they're living it, rather than like you're pointing out, we give too much oxygen to the bad behavior.
Absolutely.
Well, let's train toward, hey, this is what's important, but then give the highlights to the ones that are actually doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. We're glad you joined us today, and we are thrilled. If you are working on values, or you're sitting here going, wow, this is great and all, guys, and conceptually I agree, but I don't know what to do with this. I'll tell you what, reach out. We would love to have a good conversation with you about it. We'd love to help you out, just to offer you some insights, some input. What are some practical ways that you can apply the values? How can you get at what your core values are, and then how can you apply them throughout the organization? We'd love to help you, either one of the two of us, or we know plenty of other great consultants that maybe know about you as well. So either way, reach out. We'd love to talk to you. Bye.
See ya.